It all started off completely by chance. There was a bunch of people got together to talk about how to put art in the high street of Margaret River when the bypass goes round. And I said I'd had this idea for some time of opening an Open Studios venture. And a woman sitting almost next door to me called Gillian Taylor said, "That's funny, I had the same idea too." Very much the driving impetus was the closure of quite a lot of commercial galleries up in Perth at that particular time. So many really quite good artists were left high and dry without anywhere to show their work. One of the real early backers was the Tourism Association. In discussion, Gillian decided she didn't particularly like doing this sort of thing and she wanted me to be the chair of it and that she was happy to be the secretary. Neither of us are artists. She's an amateur artist and I'm an art lover and a collector of art, but we thought we must have a board made up of artists and preferably well-known artists in the region. Things have evolved since then. All the way through we decided to try and be as environmentally sensitive as possible and to have as much done here as we could. Just trying to keep it all within the community, but that way it does extend out into the community. It becomes a community event.
Well, I'm a graphic designer and so I was approached to actually do the design initially of the event. And so that was how I initially became involved in it. And then because I do the printmaking, it was something that I thought, oh, I could do this too. It's a yearly annual event that this year is 97 studios open.
What we've done is different from elsewhere. Here we wanted to have an event, particularly so the artists could meet members of the public. We thought we're going to ask our artists to be open for 16 days, which is what makes it unique. And some of the artists have virtually talked off their feet by the end of 16 days. But that way people could come down from Perth and spend 2 or 3 nights here. And I think tourism recognised the potential of that early on.
So I find a lot of people are coming through and they're really enjoying the fact that they can have a day just travelling around, or a week in fact, going to the beach, going to wineries, doing a few studios, having lunch, and they're very excited about that. People just love the way to explore the region through art.
Gillian and I both knew that there were a lot of artists living down here, and I think artists do gravitate towards areas of natural beauty. So we thought we'd find some artists who wanted to do this.
When I first started being in the event, and I was asked by the original, organising duo, it completely freaked me out because I just thought, oh, I have to talk to people about my art, and I wasn't really sure what I would be saying about my art. I didn't even know if I'd have anything to say about my art. I was really just in the emerging stage of understanding what it was I was doing, how I was doing it, what I wanted to do with it. So that first year was really eye-opening because people came in and they were so lovely and they were so really genuinely interested in what I was doing. That I discovered I had no problem talking about what I was doing or what my art was about. That was probably the biggest learning curve, to discover that I did have a lot to say that wasn't visual, and that has kind of led me down a second track, which has been towards doing classes and workshops, and I've given a couple of talks and I've been invited to open some school art exhibitions and all those sorts of things. Before that, paintings that I was doing, I was giving to galleries, which was fantastic, and they were selling them, and you'd sort of say, oh, fantastic, who bought it? And they're like, oh, some people from Perth. And that was kind of the extent of your relationship with, the end of that painting went off and became somebody else's part of their story. That has been a significant change and very fulfilling to have those relationships start here and to continue. And then of course I had to teach myself how to use Facebook and Instagram and develop a mailing list and get everything else sort of going along. So I've been sort of expanded in many ways because of Open Studios.
My wife's an artist, all right, so there's a vested interest in trying to support artists. But friends of ours who are quite professional artists who show at studios often felt the only time they could meet a member of the public was at the opening. And then they go away and leave the work in the studio, and the studio sells it to people who come through the door who may or may not know the artist. And I've personally always felt much more happy with pieces of art on our wall when I've known the artist. So this way we thought, we'll see if we can get members of the public to come meet the artist, get to know the artist, and then they'll be more likely to want to have a piece of work, if they like it, on their wall.
I didn't realise how much I loved sharing what I knew with others until Open Studios.
People can see exactly what you're doing and how you work, and I like explaining to people, this is how I started painting, this is the process, and it's usually the exact opposite of what they think it is. It just gives you that thread to make a connection, and people often open up, whereas they mightn't in a gallery. Galleries are more of a cloister, I guess.
The local community really was our first and only audience when we first started Open Studios. So that's the biggest thing that we've noticed this year, is that we have really managed to, fling the net wider and let more people know about it.
Wendy, my wife, who's an artist, she's found it more stimulating year by year as more, if you like, informed people have called in.
When the visitors come, we do ask them to sort of tell us how they found out about it, and we ask them a few questions to sort of better understand where they're coming from. They then get the understanding that this is not something that's just been put on by a giant corporate body. This has been created by volunteers from within our community who live here all the time, and when they are supporting us and the event, it stays here. It's a really deeply grass-rooted event, so it's a brilliant thing for our whole community and those who visit it.
Well, it just shows that Margaret River is an enormous hub for artists.
Working with the board, you realise how much passion and energy they put into it, and volunteer hours.
I think the key to anything like this is probably the volunteers, really, with the passion behind it to drive it. We as artists just create. I really struggle with social media, so I don't have the time to organise myself as far as advertising or anything else goes. So if you can have people behind it who have the passion to push it, that's fantastic. They should be recognised, and they're the driving force, just as important as the artist.
I think passion has had an effect. For the first 2 years we were so strapped for money that she and I had to write cheques to support the thing, and we were both very willing and prepared to do that, to see it get off the ground. So the artists bear quite a brunt of it, and that's probably a good thing in terms of the artists who enrol being serious about what they're doing.
Something like this that I know is coming along every year, then I'll make sure I'm ready for. It gives me structure, it gives you something to aim for. So yeah, and someone else does all the legwork for you, which is great.
The one thing that we never wanted to do is to curate and say, you can come in, you can't. So it's been an open-ended venture.
You don't have to be a professional artist, you don't have to exhibit in galleries. Anybody who would go, oh, I think I could have a go at that, can use it as a platform to build their confidence and get out there. And I think that's really nice, because then you end up with a massive array of different talents and styles. Yeah, and I think it sort of appeals to a really wide range, because there are the different art styles involved too.
What's so wonderful is that there is everything. I mean, behind me you can probably see some photographs, so there's photographers, there's ceramicists, there's sculptors, there's glass artists. It's not all two-dimensional visual art hanging on the wall.
My style is not for everyone, but that's also the beauty of Open Studios. There's so many diverse styles that people can pick and choose. It gives you that platform to explain yourself and just put yourself out there and see how it goes.
It shows that you can produce art in whatever space you have. This is the first year I've actually had this studio, because it was a bedroom previously. So before I was just on the kitchen table. So if people see that, then they might be encouraged to do some art.
Studio, it's not a word I'm particularly fond of, because all you need to create is an area, whether it be a laundry, a garden shed or whatever. But if you can make it more comfortable, and if you can make it more people friendly, it's better again. So Open Studios has helped me work on that.
And because you're getting feedback all the time, and you're able to hear straight from the visitors' mouths, what they really like. I wouldn't say that I change what I do based on the feedback that I'm getting, but I'm definitely informed by it. It definitely gives me ideas about different things that I could add.
This has made me probably rethink the dynamic, I guess, and how I present myself. For instance, when we built this house, We built this studio with Open Studios in mind for that reason.
They get it. There's immense pleasure out of welcoming people into your home because they're so enthusiastic about what they see.
I think a lot of people who are very emerging are given the confidence and it's very accessible for them to kind of give it a go. They don't have to have a whole solo exhibition to try out their art on the public.
I've learned to be more confident about my work because this event forces you to meet people and put your work up on the walls, and it's given me more confidence generally, I think, in speaking to people and talking about the techniques and recognising what I do, as well as the event actually recognising what other artists do, and they share their passions and skills as well. So it's a very open art community. A lot of people this year have opened their studios in the evenings and had like an opening evening where a lot of artists go to, so you are connecting with artists in that way as well, swapping ideas and just seeing how they go, because otherwise you can feel quite alienated in your studio. So it's good to get out there and see what other people are doing, because you realise that everybody's in the same boat, really.
I think we've definitely even started to attract artists to probably come and move here because the art scene seems so vibrant. Well, it is so vibrant.
I decided 5 years was enough for me to be chairing it, because it's a terrific commitment and all volunteer. So I determined to try and find someone else to chair it. I found this muggins called Jim Davis. But it's interesting because the whole event will go in a different direction now, I think. He's a marketing expert, and it's going to be a challenge for him, and I think he's going to rise to the challenge. But he's made some significant changes already, and I think the flavour of the board is changing a bit. If you like, we'll have to guard against getting too commercial, I think.
It's gotten bigger, and as anything grows, I guess it changes, and there are probably a lot more artists now than there were to start with, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just gives people a wider scope and a wider selection of different artists, which is what it's all about.
It's a different community, I suppose, in lots of ways to what lots of people would think about Margaret River being, surf and wine and food. It's a very creative community, and it's great to be part of, seeing that evolving so quickly.